Court TV is bringing you the rock-throwing murder trial for a 20-year-old. The defendant is Joseph Koenig in Colorado. Now, this trial began on Monday while we were bringing you the Lori Daybell trial. So today, we are bringing you key moments from this really compelling Colorado trial. Koenig is accused of first-degree murder for throwing a rock at a young driver's car that smashed her windshield and killed her. The prosecution claims that Koenig was one of three then 18-year-olds who threw rocks at cars in April of 2023. Two of the teens took plea deals, and they are scheduled to testify against Koenig. Before we bring you more testimony, let's get you caught up on this case. 20-year-old Alexa Bartell was killed on April 19th of 2023 when she was hit by a rock that was thrown at her windshield. Joseph Koenig, Zachary Kwok, and Nicholas Karol-Chik were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Several other people were injured by rocks that they threw during joyrides.
Throwing large landscaping rocks primarily at oncoming drivers as they passed, creating enough force for those rocks to smash through windshields, to destroy the bodies of cars, to destroy the bodies of humans.
Kwok and Karol-Chik took plea deals and will be sentenced next month. They say it was Koenig who threw the fatal rock. Koenig pleaded not guilty.
The defendant reaches across his body, grabs this landscaping rock with his left dominant hand, and throws it outside the driver's side window as she passes like a shot put.
Koenig's defense attorney doesn't dispute that his client was involved, but he says Koenig did not throw the fatal rock and argues that his actions do not warrant a murder charge.
He didn't intend to hurt anyone. In Mr. Koenig's mind, he wasn't targeting drivers. They were throwing rocks at cars. The evidence will clearly show that Zach Kwok and not Joe Koenig threw the final rock of that night, the rock that killed Alexa Bartell.
Let's get you back into testimony now. We're picking it up with the final moments of the direct examination of Elinor Davis. She's one whose car was hit by one of those rocks thrown on the highway.
Had you seen where this rock had come from?
Somewhere off the left side of my car.
Did you see any cars or trucks or vehicles coming in the opposite direction at that time?
I did not.
Is Highway 93 a dark road?
Yes, it is.
Are there many lights on that road?
No.
Were you in an area where it was dark out?
Yes.
And so once you pulled over and assessed the damage to yourself and your car, what did you do next?
I determined that I may still be in danger, that there was a rock in my car, and obviously that had to have come from somewhere. If whoever or whatever had put that rock in my car were to come back, I did not want to be where I was. So I decided I had a choice between going home to my parents, about 24 minutes, and turning back around and going home, which was about 14 minutes. And I decided that my parents would be more apt to provide me with support and medical attention. And so I decided to go home to my parents' place.
And while you were parked on the side of the road and making that decision, how long did that all take?
I don't know.
A couple of minutes?
Probably.
Were you
more than 10.
Did you call 911 at that point?
I was too terrified.
Did you call anybody at that point?
No.
Did you have your cell phone on you?
I did.
Okay.
So I had one hand on the wheel and one holding my neck.
In terms of you holding your neck, were you still in pain when you decided to continue driving to your parents' home?
Yes.
What was your pain level?
It's hard to remember the exact level of pain because reflecting on pain is a difficult and subjective experience. I would say that it was greater than I would have liked.
Do you remember telling Officer Whitesides that you were trying to force the pain down to a 4 out of 10?
Yes.
And it had been kind of a 6 out of 10?
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Did you ever call a friend, Charles Latow, if I'm saying that? And tell us when you called him.
I believe I called him, I want to say around 11:30. The exact time is not salient to me.
Was that after you'd arrived at your
Yes,
parents'?
it was after I arrived at my parents' place.
And did you tell your friend what had happened to you that night?
Yes, I did.
So you mentioned that from where you braked on the side of the road, it was about, did you say 24 or 26 minutes to get to your parents' home?
24.
And did it take you about that long to get to your parents' home in Littleton?
Probably took a little bit longer because I was driving cautiously, given that I had a hole in my front windshield and my back windshield was entirely blown out.
Once you got home, what did you do?
I thought it would be funny if I startled my parents. And so I acted like everything was normal. I walked in, I greeted my stepfather. I walked into the kitchen and I said, "Hey, Bob, it's good to see you." And she, of course, didn't pick up that anything was wrong. And so she, with her back to me, says, "Oh, hey, honey, it's good to see you too." And that's kind of when the tension of the moment snapped. And I asked her to look at me. And I still hadn't seen the full extent of the damage to my face because my mirror had been blown out. So when she turns around and I see the look of horror that eclipses her expression, I realize how bad I must look.
And so you had injuries that were visible to her at that time?
Yes, lacerations across my face and neck.
To be clear, was there glass still on your body?
There was, yes.
Where was it?
It was in different various nooks and crannies. As I said, some of it got in my mouth. I was pulling glass out of my eyes and ears for at least 24 hours. And it was the thing about windshields when they break is that they kind of powder. And so there was this kind of powdery glass filament in a lot of the creases of my clothes.
So did you get in the shower with your clothes on?
I did, yes.
Is Exhibit 60 a fair and accurate representation of how you looked when you got home that night of April 19th, 2023?
When I got home in the moment, I looked much less cheerful.
Describe that. Why do you look cheerful in this photo?
I look cheerful in this photo because when somebody's gone through enough horrific experiences, as I have, you learn that there's not much else you can do but react to it in a way that makes you feel stronger.
And did this smile that you have in this photo make you feel stronger?
Yes.
Relevant and leading.
Permit the leading as to that question overruled. You may raise further objections as we go.
Your answer was yes?
Yes.
Did you do a closer assessment of your car and its damage than you were able to do while you were off on the side of the road once you got to your parents' home?
Of course, but not until I attended to my wounds.
Right. And after you had tended to your wounds, and I assume changed your clothes, is that when you looked at the damage to your
Yes.
car? What damage did the rock cause to your car?
Well, there was an entry. There's an entry mark through the front windshield. There is a deep indentation in my back seat, approximately 3 inches deep, 5 inches across, where the rock made impact with my back seat. And my back windshield is entirely blown out.
If you'd please look at...
Furthermore, the rear view mirror is gone.
Morning, Ms. Davis.
Good morning.
Just want to ask you a couple clarifying questions about your testimony that you just gave.
Of course.
Pertaining to Life 360, does that also track your speed?
It does, I believe.
Do you know what your speed was from that night?
I do not.
Okay. The other question I want to ask you about is at the beginning of your testimony, you talked about just before your car was hit, you thought you saw a bird or a hawk or something. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
And then it was about a second or two when your car was actually hit by the object.
Yes.
When you saw what you thought was a bird, where was it in your field of vision? You recall? Up?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
If I were to be looking straight at the road, this would be where I saw the object.
Okay. And can you recall the trajectory of the object? Was it moving straight? Was it coming down? Do you recall?
It moved in an arc.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Let's welcome our guest for this hour, defense attorney, former head prosecutor Bob Bianke. Bob, great to have you on. So glad you're on with me. And let me ask you two things that stood out to me. The first is I always think you take your witness as you find them. She was a creative writing major, very descriptive, inky darkness, powdery glass filaments. As she's talking, I think you really honestly couldn't have asked for a more descriptive witness.
Yeah, she's extremely descriptive. I was wondering, actually, it's funny, her testimony is odd. Like, I was wondering whether she was really prepped for trial because she wasn't giving the prosecutor exactly what it was that the prosecutor wanted. Nevertheless, she is painting a great picture with her words. She's very credible. She's answering questions directly and honestly. She's knowledgeable. She's providing a really good detailed description of the fright that she was going through and the trauma that she was going through, which is going to have a big emotional impact with the jury. So she's an excellent witness. And you dance with the one you brought, Judge, I always say, when you're dealing with your witnesses. And I'd like a little bit less of the pithiness, but she's a pretty good witness overall. I mean, I think the jury understands she's agitated, upset, and listen, our witnesses sometimes are a little quirky too.
Quirky, but that's what I was going to say is I have a little bit of a fear that the jury may not receive her testimony well, because I reacted not necessarily in a positive way, thinking, boy, is this scripted? Nobody talks like that. She might, to your point. But the other piece of this is quickly just the cross-examination. I thought it was interesting that the defense attorney brought up a bird in her vision and then focused on the arc of the rock. How might that help a defense say this was not murder, but rather a lesser charge? He didn't intend to kill anyone.
Yeah, I think the prosecution's got a really hard time here. I think they overcharge this case. No disrespect to the people involved. A premeditated and deliberate desire to kill is always hard for prosecutors to prove in cases like this. Defense is clearly going to go for the lesser included offenses.
Absolutely agree with you. Excuse my coughing, Bob. You're going to stay with us. So glad you're going to be with us. And we're going to have more of the surviving victim's testimony in the rock-throwing murder trial for Joseph Koenig out of Colorado. Stay tuned.
Lori Daybell,
already convicted for the murders of her children.
Doomsday cult mom is now lawyer Lori.
she's representing herself.
On charges of conspiring to murder her fourth husband.
She said, I can murder you now.
She really thinks she's equipped to try this case.
She appears very sure of herself.
I have real trial experience.
It's going to be a strange trial. We'll see how it plays out.
The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage continues Monday morning on Court TV.
Welcome back. We are bringing you the murder trial for a defendant, Joseph Koenig, out of Colorado. The prosecution claims that 10 drivers were struck by landscaping rocks and that one of those rocks caused the death of Alexa Bartell. A big part of this trial will be proving who threw the rock that killed the victim. There were 3 co-defendants. The defense claims Koenig isn't the one who did it and blames one of those co-defendants, Zachary Kwok. He took a plea deal, and so did the other co-defendant, Nicholas Karol-Chik. Both will testify against Koenig. Let's get you back to court now for more testimony. On the stand is another driver, Brian Smith, whose car was hit by one of those rocks.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Brian Smith.
Common spelling?
Common spelling, yes.
What do you do for work, Mr. Smith?
I'm a program manager at Google.
Okay. And where do you live?
Netherlands.
And what kind of car do you drive?
I was driving at the time a Subaru Forester.
And when you say you were driving at the time, you obviously know why you're here.
Yes.
We're going to talk about what happened to you on April 19th of 2023. So you're driving a different vehicle now than you were driving on that date?
We still have that vehicle, but that's my wife's and I have mine.
Okay. On April 19th, 2023, what was the make and model and color of the car you were driving that night?
It was a black Subaru Forester.
And the year being a 2021?
Correct.
And if I could just have you turn over the reports in front of you.
Just turn them.
Oh, yes.
Where were you driving that night around 10:30? Where were you going from and where were you going to?
I was on my way back from Denver International, and I was going back to my house.
The airport?
Yes, the airport.
Were you driving behind anyone?
I was.
What kind of car were you driving behind?
Minivan.
How far behind the minivan were you?
2 to 3 vehicle lengths, the kind of a standard distance for that speed.
Was anyone coming northbound, rather driving northbound while you and the minivan were driving southbound?
Yes.
And what happened when you and the minivan were driving southbound and someone else was coming northbound?
So the vehicle coming northbound, something came out. I wasn't sure if it was a pickup truck or a flatbed truck, but something came off the back of the truck, struck the minivan in front of me, and then came off the minivan's vehicle and hit my vehicle.
And so describe what you could see, given that it was nighttime. How were you able to make out that this was either a flatbed truck or a pickup truck?
I mean, generally, I'm pretty observative. And when something came off the back, it made it very clear. I wasn't sure if it was ice or something. And then in my side view mirror, I looked back and was able to see that it was a truck of some sort and not a closed top vehicle.
And so did you say that you saw it was a truck after it had passed?
Correct, yes.
And so not before it had passed you, is that fair?
Yes.
And did you see anyone in the truck?
No, it was dark and they had their lights on, so I couldn't see into the vehicle.
And describe what you saw in terms of this truck first passing the minivan in front of you.
So like I said, as it was passing the minivan, I saw something come out of the back. At first, since it was kind of the tail end of winter, I thought it was maybe a sheet of ice or something coming off. But whatever it was struck the vehicle ahead of me and then came and hit me. So all I saw was 2 headlights from the vehicle. So I knew there was a car coming at me, and that was basically it.
So just to be clear, you say all you saw was 2 headlights. Can you be sure where in that flatbed or pickup truck this item came from?
No, I cannot.
And you didn't see anyone in that truck throw anything?
No, I did not.
Was there damage to your car?
Yes.
What was that damage?
Our windshield cracked in multiple spots and our sunroof cracked as well.
Did you take photos of that?
I did not, no.
Did you go get that fixed?
Yes.
You mentioned that you pulled over behind the driver of the minivan. Did you discuss what had just happened to him and to you?
Yes, we did.
And what was that discussion?
So at the time, I mean, I think we were both in shock. We didn't know exactly what happened. We didn't discuss like what we saw. It was mostly I made sure he was okay. I asked if something came out of his vehicle, which did not. And then once I made sure he was okay, he had said he would call the police. And since my wife and I were okay and our vehicle was drivable, we left.
What was the damage that you saw on the side of the road to this minivan?
Just all of the passenger or all of the driver's side windows looked like they were completely blown out. They weren't there. There was glass in the vehicle and outside of the vehicle.
Did you see glass on the road consistent with the glass that had been broken out of this minivan?
Yes.
And so you mentioned you and your wife went home before police arrived?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Cross-examination?
No questions.
Mr. Tipton, where do you live?
I currently live in Mississippi now, Gulfport, Mississippi, but I wasn't living in Lakewood for a long time, for most of my life.
For most of your life?
Yes,
Did you just fly in from Mississippi today?
I did.
And were you living in the area on April 14th, this area, on April 19th, 2023?
Yes,
Where were you living?
in Lakewood.
What was your job at that time?
I was and still am a Lyft and Uber operator.
And so describe what that is.
I drive people from A to B and make money while I'm doing it.
What kind of vehicle were you driving on April 19th of 2023?
I was driving a 2014 Chrysler Town and Country.
Is that a minivan?
It is.
What color was it?
Gray, dark gray.
Were you driving that night for Uber and or Lyft?
I was.
And did you have passengers throughout that night?
Not at that time. I had just dropped off some riders in Boulder, and I was headed back to Red Rocks to take advantage of the surge rates there. And so I was deadheading to Red Rocks at that time. And
so you said not at that time. Let me ask you some follow-up questions there. And if you could get closer to the microphone.
Sure.
That would be great. Thanks. So I think you understand why you're here for a certain time. So were you driving from Boulder to Red Rocks when and just wait till I finish asking the question, just because we have a court reporter here who has to write down everything we say. So what was your route from Boulder where you had just dropped off some passengers to go to Red Rocks?
Highway 93 southbound.
So what happened on April 19th, 2023 at about 10:15 p.m.?
As I was driving to Red Rocks from Boulder, I was, doing my normal thing, and then I heard a loud smash, and I swerved a little bit and didn't understand what happened, and then cold air was all over, and I looked over my left shoulder, and I'm missing two windows on the backside of my van. So I pulled over right away and in a spot that I could, and that's when another couple pulled up beside me and asked me if I was okay. And I said, yeah, I'm fine. I don't know what happened. Something hit my car.
And were you in the area of 120th and Highway 93 when this something hit your car?
Yes.
How fast were you driving when something hit your car?
Roughly 60 miles an hour, right around the speed limit.
And you said when you were driving 60 miles an hour, you were just doing your normal thing. What's that?
Just driving, paying attention to the road, and just doing what any operator does when you're driving down the road.
And you said earlier you were deadheading to Red Rocks. Just explain what that means.
That's in relevance.
Overall, that means I'm trying to acquire a fare, and in doing so, I saw a larger opportunity at Red Rocks than in Boulder. So at that point, I decided not to take a fare. So deadheading means I'm not picking up any riders at that moment, so I can get to where the money is going to be more plentiful. And so that's what the deadhead means. It means I was not picking up any riders on my way to that next destination.
So were you alone in your minivan at the time?
Yes.
When you did pick up riders, where did they sit in your minivan?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
Riders would sit. I have it with the minivan. I have two rows in the back, and then I also have a front passenger seat on the right side. So typically, it will sit in the two captain chairs in the middle of the van. So if I had picked up two people, then there would be one behind me, the driver, and the one behind the front passenger seat. That's typically where people sit on a regular.
You mentioned that you were going 60 miles an hour and paying attention to the road. When something smashed into your windows behind you, did you see any oncoming vehicles?
Yes, there was three vehicles that had passed me at that time. And my first reaction once I saw my windows were blown out, that was to turn around and go chase down the vehicles, but I did not. Instead, I went home and talked to my wife, and that's when we called Jefferson County Sheriff.
And can you describe the sound that you heard at that time?
A very loud crash. More of it was a multitude of like a pop and a crash at the same time. It was very startling.
Did you know what had happened when you heard it?
No.
Did you see anything approaching those windows or you?
No,
Right before the impact, you didn't see anything?
no. It was a very sudden impact, and it was very startling.
And did you, at that time, have the wherewithal to then pull over?
Yes.
And how soon after you heard this impact were you able to pull over?
Probably within the next 30 seconds. As soon as I had a clearing where I was, there was a guardrail. So there was no room on the shoulder to pull over. So I went to the end of the guardrail, and that's when I pulled over.
And did the couple behind you pull into that?
They pulled up next to me and asked me if I was okay. There was no traffic on the road when they pulled up and asked me if I was okay. And then they said, well, something hit our car too. And I was like, well, I don't know what that was. And I said, and then they asked me if I needed their assistance. And I said, no. I said, I'll figure it out. And then they took off.
And what did you do to figure it out? What did you do from there?
Well, I got out of my car and I had looked at the damage that was done and kind of freaked out a little bit on what am I going to do. I said, well, that's the end of my night. I can't go work. I can't have people in a car like that.
Was there glass covering seats at that point?
Oh, everywhere. Over the whole back of the car.
Cross-examination?
No questions.